Hello, everybody. So, I want to talk a little bit this week about the difference between entities and earthbound spirits, because I think it's very, very important to raise awareness regarding this. So, as soul center healing hypnosis practitioners, we remove entities and we also remove earthbound spirits. We remove AI. We remove any implants that shouldn't be there in the body that are not for your best and highest good. And we rebuild the energetic body and make sure that your aura is completely robust and intact so that no further entities can attach to your energetic body or fields. Now, one of the things that we will find a lot is earthbound spirits, and particularly in people that work in hospitals or work in places where the souls of humans are exiting. So, there's quite a few areas there, isn't there, that you can think about. If you're a doctor, if you're a paramedic, if you're a nurse, if you are a cleaner in a hospital, if you work in the canteen in a hospital, if you are an ambulance driver, if you work in a care home, if you work anywhere where there are end of life situations occurring, if you work near a cemetery, if you work in a bar, because what you will often hear from earthbound spirits is that the first thing that they did when they realized that they were dead is they went to a bar to get a drink. And they're all of the people that are addicted to alcohol. They're going to go to a bar. So actually, one of the worst things that you can do is go to a bar and get drunk, because there will be lots of earthbound spirits in that bar and they will jump into you so that they can experience that feeling of having a drink again. So, what are earthbound spirits as opposed to entities? So, entities are an actual being like us that are polarized towards consuming light. So, whereas we have a physical body and we have an energetic body that provides our physical body with light, entities, although they do have their own source of light, they've forgotten it. It's shrunk down very, very teeny tiny inside of what they are, and they've forgotten that they're light. And this leaves them with an overwhelming, burning desire to find light. And each type of entity is attracted to a certain vibratory resonance of light. And they will attach to people whose energy centers are vibrating lower due to trauma. So that's entities. So entities will suck away your light. They attach to your energetic body and, as a parasite, suck away your energy and your light. So your physical vehicle becomes diseased. So you start to exhibit very low frequency emotions continuously. So you start to hear voices and you start to feel generally very unwell and unstable. That's entities. How are earthbound spirits different? So earthbound spirits at one point had their own physical body. So they were a human, just like you and I are now. And for whatever reason, they lost access to their physical vehicle. And instead of returning to the white light of source, from which everything comes from in this universe, instead of going back to source, they stayed bound on the earth plane. Now, there's many reasons why earthbound spirits can do this. It's either, number one, due to terror. So if they died in complete abject terror, they will stay bound to the earth because they'll be so scared they won't go to the light. Number two, it can be because they don't realize they're dead. Now, people that get murdered, like bludgeoned to death from behind, they just roam around searching for somebody that they know because they don't realize that they're dead. People that are not ready to leave a place. So if they have a strong possessing feeling over a person or place, but say, for example, they really, really love their castle that they live in, they don't want to leave that castle when they die, they don't want somebody else to move into it, then they will stay. If there's somebody on the earth plane that they absolutely adore and they're not willing to leave them behind until they are satisfied that that person is safe, they will also stay. And what you will oftentimes find is that that person will become bound to the loved one that they have stayed behind to protect. You'll find that a lot of time with adults, parents that have passed. They will not leave the earth plane until they know that their child is doing okay. But there's absolutely nothing that they can do as a bound, earthbound spirit to make sure that their child is okay. And eventually, what they end up doing is affecting the child in a negative way because all of their anxiety and fear at how powerless they are in their situation ends up affecting the child. The only way you can help your child if you do die is to cross over, is to become healed and to be given all of your powers back in terms of who and what you are, who and what your soul and your spirit is. Then you can come back and help them from the higher realms. You can help them in that way. Another reason that people will stay bound to earth is due to addiction. So if somebody is addicted to drugs, alcohol, sometimes sex, they're not ready to give up sex. They don't want to go back into the light. They want the pleasures of what the body will give them. Sometimes they will stay bound as well. And you'll get those earthbound spirits jumping into people who also have a heavy interest in sex. What other situations can I think of off the top of my head regarding earthbound spirits and why it is that they stay? Sometimes if they feel that they've been a bad person in this lifetime and they don't deserve to go to heaven, or they don't deserve to go back to source, they don't deserve forgiveness, they will also stay bound as well because they feel that there isn't a place for them, there's nowhere for them to go. Now, so you've got also people that commit suicide. So people that commit suicide very often, once they've committed suicide, realize that nothing has changed, that they still feel exactly the same way as they did before they committed suicide. But now they're really upset because now they no longer have access to their physical body anymore. And what that individual will oftentimes do is go and find a loved one and try and communicate to them, oh my goodness, I tried to end it all. I tried to end this feeling that I have. And all that's happened is I'm still here, but nobody can see me. I haven't got a body anymore. Because to be seen with the human eyes in this realm, you have to have a physical avatar. People that have got an open third eye can see the other realms that exist all the way around us, of which there are many. But regarding the eyes of the human in the physical body, you can only be seen if you also have a physical body. If you're somebody that can see spirit, you're seeing them through your third eye, not your physical eyes. And some people may say to me, well, actually, I can see spirit through my physical eyes. Brilliant. Very, very happy for you. So you've got all of these earthbound spirits that when they come out of their physical bodies, they are literally freeze framed at the point in time that they lost their physical body. So if that person is very, very distressed because they've been murdered, they will be vibrating around the energy of the root. So they'll be vibrating red, angry energy because they've been murdered. And whatever or however they were murdered, so if they had their throat slit from behind, they will have that feeling perpetually. So if you get that angry earthbound spirit that's vibrating at a red energetic level that's very unhappy because they've been murdered, they're very angry, and they also had their throat slit. If you get that energy jump into you when you are intoxicated in a bar, what you will find is you start to feel very, very unbalanced. Your root starts to feel disconnected. You don't feel connected to the planet anymore. You'll start to feel very, very angry, and you'll start to have sensations or issues with your throat. Because what an earthbound spirit does that's different to an entity is when they jump into your fields, they place an overlay, if you like, on your energetic body. So they affect your energetic body with their thoughts, feelings, emotions, and sensations. And those thoughts, feelings, emotions, and sensations are freeze framed regarding how and what they were feeling at the time of their death. So you can get many, many people, say, for example, that's a paramedic that will go to, that will be the first person to respond to a tragic event where somebody has lost their life, or is it the point in time where they're almost losing their life? And then that soul is lifting out of the body, and they're becoming aware that they're still conscious, they still have a consciousness, but they just don't have their body anymore. And they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. They don't understand really how this can occur because nobody explains this sort of stuff to anybody. And so what they do is they look to the paramedic who has responded at that point in time to the emergency, and they end up getting sucked into that paramedic's energetic fields instead of going back to source. And then what that paramedic will start to experience is whatever sensations and feelings that that individual was feeling at their time of death, that paramedic will then start to experience it. So if the person was shot, the paramedic will then start to experience that sensation of pain in the area where that individual was shot. If that individual was suicidal at the time of death, the paramedic will then start to feel suicidal. It'll come from nowhere. And what the paramedic will probably do is put that down to, I'm working too hard at work. I'm surrounded by some really intense stuff. It's making me feel sad. Or I'm going to go home and have a drink. And so many people will turn to coping mechanisms, to drink, to drugs, to try and dull these sensations that they've started to feel. And then that in turn opens people up even wider to more spirit possession, because it is much easier to jump into somebody's energetic fields when they are intoxicated. You will get many, many people that, and I've seen many of these over the years, that feel differently after they've gone into a place that used to be a burial site, or a place where people used to be sacrificed. And there was a lot of this stuff used to go on years ago in the stone circles, or particular stone placements all around the world. Years ago, people would sacrifice an individual in these stone sites. And I've had this many times over the years where I've worked with clients where, when we've connected with these earthbound spirits under hypnotherapy, they've said that they came out of the stone, that they lost their life, they were sacrificed at the stone, they didn't know what to do, so they just stayed with the stone. So one of the things that I started doing a long time ago is, whenever I go to these stone circles, whenever I go to these burial sites or sack barrows, or the type of thing I'm talking about, I connect to Archangel Michael, to Kuan Yin and Archangel Raphael, and I ask those guys to help me to collect all of the earthbound spirits up that want to go back to source, that are lost, that don't know where to go or what to do. And we clean all of those earthbound spirits away from that site by helping them go back over, cross over to source. You wouldn't believe how many of these spirits you find in caves as well. A long time ago, I was guided to start visiting caves in the UK. And I was thinking, why is this occurring? Why am I all of a sudden being guided to visit caves? And it was because you will get lots of earthbound spirits over the years that have sought refuge from the incremental weather in a cave. Excuse me, I am going to cough. And they've died in that cave. And so their soul, their spirit, is still roaming around in that cave. And you'll get many, many people over the years that were sacrificed in caves. Many young children were used as workhorses, work tools in caves to produce things in caves. So there are many, many earthbound spirits roaming around in caves. Also hospitals. When you go to the hospital, you got to get your shields up. You need your spiritual armor on when you go to a hospital, because a hospital is absolutely overrun with earthbound spirits, all of whom many don't understand they've died, many are very, very traumatized. The amount of nurses that I have worked with over the years that report, I've just got really bad brain fog. I can't function anymore. Can't function anymore. I used to be able to reel off all of these statistics and stats, and I used to know all of the different, tools in the hospital, and I used to know all of the levels of everything. And it's like there's a fog there now, and I can't reach it. I can't reach the information. I can't reach my training. My body feels terrible, like I've aged overnight. I've got aches and pains all over the body. I've got this stabbing pain in my stomach. I feel like I can't breathe. I literally feel like I can't breathe. So I don't know what the hell's going on with my lungs. But when I try to breathe, I feel like I can't breathe. And these are your classic symptoms of earthbound spirit infestation. Because what that nurse has done is they are simply a nurse in the hospital. People exit their physical vehicle. They don't know what to do. They don't know what's happened. They might be feeling very confused. They might not even realize they're dead. Their spirit and soul is lifted up out of the physical vehicle, which is still back there on the ventilator. And they're there and they're like, what's going on now? And they walk up to the nurse and they say, nurse, what's happening? And their energy is sucked into that nurse's field's energetic body. And then all of a sudden, now the nurse is carrying the spirit of that individual that just died. And at the time that they died, they couldn't breathe. They couldn't breathe at all. They were on a ventilator. So the nurse starts to experience that she can't breathe. Her lungs aren't working properly. These people are heavily medicated at the time that they pass because they're in a lot of pain. So because they're heavily medicated, there's no cognitive function. Nothing is working up here. And the nurse will start to say, nothing's working up here. I can't get my brain to work. I can't access anything anymore. I don't understand what's going on. And it's simply because they have collected a whole boatload of earthbound spirits over the years. I have heard no end of harrowing tales as well from people, from entities that explain that they became attached to your client because they came out of the doctor that was working on the client at the time that the client needed help. So many entities will be transferred from a doctor or a nurse who's got that many in there that the entities are all starting to fight and they're not happy anymore. They don't feel comfortable. So they'll jump out of the doctor or the nurse into whomever it is that's on the operating table. That person comes out of hospital and they've got a brand new entity. I had absolutely really, really heavy protection around me 2 years ago now when I went into hospital for an operation. But I still came out of that hospital with a couple of earthbound spirits that were hanging around the outside of my fields because those guys just knew from the level of light that was in me that I would help them in some way. And so I ended up with these two earthbound spirits attached to my energetic body, and they ended up obviously being helped and crossed over into the white light of source. People that work uh, in selling houses. This is another one. People that work in selling houses. You would not believe how many earthbound spirits are in houses, particularly when they're old. When we moved into this house, we had a guy here who lived in the house before, who died in the house. Um, and he didn't know he was dead because he was an alcoholic. He drank himself to death. And he had to be removed from this house because he felt that this house was still his. And recently, we've given up searching now because it's just not happening. But recently, me and my husband have been going around a lot of houses to try and find a new home. And it's really tough for me to do that because they are absolutely chock full of earthbound spirits. There was one house that we actually referred to as Death House because when we went into the house, it was a very old house. When we went into that house, there were that many spirits in that house, I could physically taste them. And I'm saying to the family, well, my family, whilst I'm in there, we're not having this house. And my husband straight away, like, we've only just stepped through. Why are we not having the house? And I'm like, trust me on this one. You know your wife's extra skills. I'm trying to say this in front of the estate agent, the realtor. And he's like, oh, this is to do with your extra skills, is it? And I'm like, yeah, my extra skills are telling me we're not having this house. And the kids are running around in the house and they're starting to argue. And I'm like, children, let's not argue in this house. Let's just stay very, very calm whilst we walk back out of this house. And I had to do entity release on my kids that night because they were absolutely chock full of earthbound spirits that had been sucked into their light because all of these spirits have been in there for so long. My kids run in, two little bundles of light, and all of these spirits get sucked in. So you've got to be very, very careful where you're going. If you're a realtor, got to protect your energy, make sure you're in a very, very high frequency when you walk into these places. Churches, full of them. Old village halls that used to be a church years ago. We all send our kids to these places, don't we? For various different groups. And it's now, a community centre or a recreation centre, or it's now a nursery or whatever it is. But it's literally built inside an old church. Those places are chock full of earthbound spirits. And when they turn them into nurseries, when they turn them into places where kids go to play, what happens? All of those earthbound spirits get sucked into the high energy of your children because those children are just shining like diamonds. They're so bright, and it's a spirit cannot help itself. A spirit has this magnetization where it is naturally drawn towards the light. It wants to go to the light because it's like a failsafe to get us to go back home to source. But if you've got a spirit that died in a church, they went to their own funeral at the church, they stayed there because they didn't really know where to go, and then that place becomes a nursery. Your child is then being subjected to all of these earthbound spirits being pulled into their light. I see it time and time again. The worst ones are old churches, and there's a bit of a trend in the UK at the moment. Old churches that have been transformed into cool bars. You imagine that. You imagine the types of entities that are in there. Used to be a church. Now it's a bar. And you've got all of these people in there. I mean, as I'm saying this, I'm literally remembering this exact situation where I live. And it was a really cool bar, to be fair. But you've got to pay attention to these things. Tattoos as well. This is going to be a controversial one. But if you have a tattoo, when you're having your skin inked, it's causing you pain, lots of pain. You'll end up with a beautiful, pretty picture on you after, but during the act of that tattoo, it's causing you pain. Now, I have found in my experience that tattoo artists end up having a lot of entities attached to them that enjoy causing pain. Because if they attach to the tattoo artist, they're going to get the opportunity to cause pain. So you will get many, many entities that will attach to a tattoo artist. And then when the person is being tattooed and is feeling the pain, these entities on the tattoo artist cannot help but jump into the person and attach to their fields because they feed off of that pain. They feed off of the emotional feeling of fear, terror, pain. And so this is how all of the earthbound spirits that stay attached in this plane end up attached to you. You got to think about these things. Every single thing that me and my family do, every outing, everywhere that we go, I have to pay particular consideration to whether this is likely to be a place that's a hotspot for earthbound spirits. And you need to do the same. And don't forget, if your child is in pain anywhere in, a park, falls and hits their knee, and is in pain, is in fear, is in terror, is upset, and there is somebody nearby that has a significant infestation, that spirit will hop straight the way over into the child, into the one that's feeling the pain. And then that child grows up into an adult that has an earthbound spirit attached. I literally saw this exact same thing recently when I was in an airport, and there's nothing I can do about it because I can't explain this kind of stuff to your average Joe, to your everyday person. I mean, where would you even start? I am very well aware that I have a very niche group of people. Um, Excuse me as I clear my throat. I have a niche group of people that understand what I'm saying, that get what I'm saying. And normally it's because those people have been subjected to something like this themselves. That's why they go looking for more information, and that's how they end up finding me. But this is not the type of stuff that you can explain to the average person. I could literally see this woman, this drunk woman in an airport that we were at recently. And as I'm looking into the eyes of this woman, lights are on, nobody's home. Her sacral was taken. I could see that severe lack of joy within this woman. But then I saw her eyes change when she saw this child. And I could also tell she had a solar plexus demon attached that enjoys the pain of children. And this little girl's playing in the airport. Must have only been, what, 1.5, probably not yet 2, not yet 2. And she trips, falls over, hits her chin on the floor, starts crying. And this woman literally jumped up like she'd been electrocuted, walked straight over to this little girl. And I'm thinking, please don't touch her. Please don't touch her. Please don't touch her. And she goes straight up to the little girl, picks her up and goes, "Are you okay? Did you fall and hurt yourself? There." And I'm literally looking at the parents going, take the child away from this woman. Take the child away from this woman now. Do it now. And the parents are just so tired. They've been in the airport for hours. Kids are constantly crying. And all they think is, oh, thank God, someone else has got up. We don't have to do it. And it is in an instant, in a moment like that, that an entity will cross over from that woman who was clearly loaded into that little child. And later on the plane, the child was crying again, and this woman appears from nowhere like that, smiling as this poor mother is trying to comfort the child and get her to sleep on the plane. This woman is stood there, transfixed, smiling at the child because the child was distressed. These are the signs you're looking out for. You know, you can't take everything at face value in this world. You just can't. You've got to give consideration to not only what you can see and sense in the physical realm regarding whether a person is a good person or a bad person, but you've also got to read into the more subtle energies, into the more subtle realms of energy, and ascertain what's going on with people, because you don't want to be leaving your child with a care worker who is secretly into causing pain or having pain inflicted on them, because what have they got attached to their energetic body? It becomes an absolute minefield. And this is something that I want to really educate humans on moving forwards, that whether you believe it or not, it is. It is. I've worked with too many people. I've seen too many things, heard too many stories. I've seen the effects of too many earthbound spirits and entities on people and what that causes within the physical body and the mental body and the emotional body of the human. We've got to start considering energy and emotion, and we've got to understand that hi person, I'll pick your child up and look after them from a third dimensional perspective. Yeah, they seem okay. But what's going on with their energy? Because whatever's going on with their energy, if they're looking after your child on a daily basis, will end up at some point jumping over into your child if your child is upset. And when I release the class, which I'm hoping to release in January of next year, when I release the class for parents on this stuff, I'm going to go into this stuff in a lot more detail, because parents really do need to understand. Just as we research, you know, the best prams for our children, the best night lights, the ones that help them sleep properly and don't keep them awake, the best foods to give our children, the best toys, all of that stuff. We also need to research what is going to be the best environment for our children to be in. We've also got to give consideration to the fact that children are very, very emotional beings. And when they are feeling a very significant and intense emotion, it can be as quick as that in that moment that they pick something up from someone else. I have to entity release my own children multiple times a week, multiple. And I'm educating my children how to identify when they feel different emotionally so that they can understand when they have picked one of these things up, but also how to control their emotions in a more balanced way so that they don't even attract these things in the first place. And that's what all of us as parents need to do moving forwards. But to finish off very, very quickly on earthbound spirits this week, earthbound spirits are everywhere. And just think about the amount of people that have died over time on this planet in tragic circumstances that have the potential to remain bound due to terror, due to lack of self-worth, due to religious beliefs, due to addiction, due to a strong possessing feeling over a person or place, due to being murdered, due to not knowing that they're dead. Multiple reasons. And these energies are all moving around. You can't see them with the human eyes because the human eyes will only see people that's got a physical earth suit. Unless you've got an open third eye, then you can see them. So pay particular attention to the places where you're going and think about these things. It's not a good idea to get very angry in a hospital, no matter what happens. And this is the tricky thing, isn't it? Because most of us go to the hospital because we're in pain. But then we put ourselves in a situation where we're in pain and we're in a hospital. So all of the entities that feed off of the emotional release that occurs in the human when they are in fear, terror, and pain, you'll end up coming out of the hospital with some of those entities attached. And then the individual's condition will become worse and worse and worse. And if you come and train with me, I teach a lot about that, how an entity attached in a particular place will then start to affect the physical body, the signs and symptoms that you can look out for. And I teach people how to help their clients to become well again. Okay, people will say to me, well, that's well and good. So how do we protect ourselves against this then? How do we protect ourselves against earthbound spirits? So one of the things that I do always is I place shields around my energy before I leave the house that are programmed with my intention that I do not consent to any earthbound spirits attaching to my energetic body or fields. I do not consent. And we have to stipulate that. We have to stipulate that with our free will choice, we do not consent. We have to say it. We have to also then be aware that we do not become a beacon for these things. So you need to look at your emotions and you need to manage the low frequency emotions that you are potentially feeling so that you don't draw these things in. You need to also, if you're somebody that's in pain, need to find out why that pain is occurring. Pain is the body's way of telling you that something is not right in the body, and that can normally be tracked back to an energetic issue, which starts in the emotional body. If we deal with the emotions around the trauma, if we move the entity from the energetic body, if we plug the light back in to the energetic body so it flows into the physical body, the pain will disappear. Unless it's a broken limb. If it's a broken limb, the pain will disappear when the wound starts to heal. A wound is a wound, but there's always a spiritual significance regarding why you got that wound in the first place. But if we're talking about pain in the body that's to do with the system not working correctly, let's say, for example, you've developed sciatica or fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia is always a buildup of too much emotion in the body that has not been allowed to be released. So you've been in a very, very traumatic situation for multiple years, and you have not been at liberty to speak your truth. Kept it all inside, kept it all inside, kept it all inside. Eventually, you will develop systemic pain throughout the body. Sciatica, nerve pain in the root is always to do with you feeling like you've got no support at all from anybody. No support from your family, no support from your friends, and it's getting on your nerves. You feel completely and utterly unsupported by life. Cancer is always anger, and the place in the body where it is will tell you exactly what it is that that person holds anger towards. This is all of the types of stuff that you will learn if you come to train with me. So I hope this video has helped a few people today, at least to think about earthbound spirits. Many of us don't think about earthbound spirits because we can't see them. And it's that whole situation, isn't it? Well, if I can't see it, it's probably not there. But these things will attach to you and they will affect your body. And if all of a sudden, if you've been doing absolutely fine and you start to feel suicidal, it's likely you've got an earthbound spirit that's attached to you. If you've been doing absolutely fine, but all of a sudden you start to feel like you're very weak around the neck. And that happened around the time that you felt suppressed at your throat. You couldn't speak up. So the throat chakra gets weakened. An earthbound spirit can jump in at that time when the throat chakra is weak and start to make you feel weak around the throat, because that's how they were exited. They had the throat slashed. These are all the types of things that you need to think about. But if you are a medical professional watching this video that deals with a lot of people, also if you're a massage therapist, Reiki, massage therapist, Reiki. If you are physically placing your hands on somebody's body, massaging, the amount of massage therapists that I have to do entity release on is unbelievable, because they get chock full of everybody else's entities. The people feel amazing after they've had a massage. I feel great. That's because their entities have just jumped off of them onto the massage therapist. Reiki as well. The amount of Reiki practitioners that I've worked with over the years that say, oh my goodness, I've come to train with you because one day I was doing Reiki, I was channeling, the universal energy into my client, and an entity, I saw it sit up out of the client and try to jump into me. And I said, no, you do not have permission. And it left. And after that, it shook me up so much. I had to research all this stuff, and I found you. I want to know how to protect myself so that if that ever happens again, then at least I know that I'm doing the right thing. Sounded like in that situation they did the right thing anyway, though, didn't it? They knew what to do innately. Lots of us do. But it's having the awareness that these things are there and how we can protect ourselves and how we can raise our vibration. We're in a time now where many, many people have actually incarnated to collect these earthbound spirits and help them cross over into the white light of source. This is the time of all times. This is the end time of this cycle. Many of us have come in to collect earthbound spirits and help them back home. It's part of what I do, isn't it? That's what I'm doing right now, trying to train people in this stuff and to teach this stuff to people that want to listen, to help them to be able to remove and cross over earthbound spirits, so that it's the great cleanup. So all of the souls that have got trapped here can make their way back home. And if I was a soul that was trapped somewhere, I would absolutely hope that there would be somebody of the light that would come looking for me. And that's all it is that I'm trying to do. Okay, I'm going to let you go now because this video's gone on a little bit. Hope you all have a wonderful week. And when you go about your daily life this week, think about the places you're going to. And think about, is this likely to be a place where there's lots of earthbound spirits? But wherever there's people, there will be earthbound spirits. Till the next time I see you guys, make sure that you keep vibrating high. Lots of love, everybody. Bye-bye.